How's it going, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about animals that might make sense for your classroom. Oftentimes when someone comes in looking for an animal for their classroom, immediately they're looking for some sort of species recommendation. However, I think what is more important when considering an animal for your classroom is the level of care that is required on a daily basis. Let me explain. Let's just say you have Thanksgiving break coming up. You're now faced with a choice of either taking the animal home for the break to care for it or leaving it unattended for the week while you're on break. Same could be said for your standard 2-day weekend or even a 3-day weekend. So when considering an animal for your classroom, the first piece that I would look at is what level of care is required, and do you want to have to care for this animal during weekends and breaks and the such. Right from the top, animals that make sense that don't need a lot of care on a daily basis would be some form of snake or some form of gecko. To make a little bit of sense of it, regarding snakes, I think the ball python makes the most sense. A ball python does not require daily maintenance. The daily maintenance in the store is changing the water and scooping the poop. But since they only eat once a week, they only poop once a week. Therefore, our daily maintenance is pretty much changing the water. Now let's put that ball python in your classroom from a maintenance perspective. Each day, you would obviously take care of it by scooping any poop and changing the water, but when a weekend comes around, it's okay to not change that water bowl for 2 days. Just make sure on Friday before you go home that it's good and full and clean, and by the time you come in Monday, it might be a little bit dirty, but there'll still be plenty of water in the bowl. From a feeding perspective, the ball python is only fed once per week, so you don't need to worry about the feeding while you're gone on the weekend. From a lizard perspective, some lizards that make sense that are very low maintenance would be a leopard gecko or a crested gecko. The leopard gecko would be my first and my foremost, mostly because they're a desert species and they don't require regular misting. Your daily maintenance with a leopard gecko is feeding, scooping the poop, and changing the water. However, when it comes to a long weekend, since leopard geckos tend to be very avid mealworm eaters, you could load up a bowl with mealworms and then make sure the water bowl is nice and full and clean. By the time you come back to school on Monday, the worms will likely be gone and the bowl will be a little bit soiled, but for the most part it'll be good and you'll have a gecko that did just fine over the weekend. A crested gecko, which is a tropical species, can be a little bit trickier. From the care perspective of feeding, it's very similar in that they're typically going to eat some sort of powdered food diet such as Pangea or Rapashi. So on the weekend, you can simply make sure that your food bowl is full and your water bowl is full. Where it becomes a little bit more tricky is with the humidity. Crested geckos do need regular misting, typically twice per day. So in the case of the crested gecko, if you use ZooMed's Environmental Control Center, you can hook that up to a misting system such as Exoterra's Monsoon, and now your misting situation is handled for the weekend. So those 3 species in particular, I would say make the best choice when it comes to maintenance when you are gone for a weekend or a longer weekend or even a short break. Anytime you're hitting a longer break like Christmas break, it's going to be in your best interest to take the animal home. Now from a handleability standpoint, I still think that the tried and true animal is the bearded dragon. Bearded dragons are awesome with kids, they're awesome with people in general, very easy to hold. The downer to the bearded dragon is they do need that daily feeding, especially as a baby. So if you have a bearded dragon in your classroom on the weekend, it's very difficult to feed it before you leave because they eat crickets. And your biggest danger with leaving crickets in a tank for a prolonged period of time is when those crickets get hungry, they eat on whatever they can, which oftentimes can be the animal. Typically with a bearded dragon, I would recommend either taking him home on the weekend, or once he's an adult, you can feed him just greens on the weekend. But a baby bearded dragon going 2 or 3 days without food is typically going to make for a very angry bearded dragon come Monday morning. If you do choose a bearded dragon as your classroom pet, you will definitely need to take it home during longer breaks such as Thanksgiving break or Christmas break. A couple animals that can make good classroom pets but are going to kind of skirt the line of comfort when it comes to maintenance would be your amphibians. Frogs and toads are super cool classroom pets, but they're very specific on the water quality and the misting. I'm not going to say you can't do it with the use of the Environmental Control Center and a misting system, just know that it's a little bit higher risk to forego daily maintenance with those animals. So typically I wouldn't recommend some sort of amphibian as a classroom pet. When it comes time to take a classroom pet that might not be handled and is display only, the sky really is the limit. You just want to zoom out and look at care. So anytime you're shopping for a classroom pet, ask yourselves, how many days can this animal go without regular care and maintenance? You want something that can make it at least through Saturday and Sunday without care or maintenance. So the things you're looking at over the weekend, can this animal go without food, and can this animal go without a water change? And then a little subcategory on that food, as long as the food is not a cricket, typically you're good to load it up for the weekend. So a Euromastix, for example, which eats greens, you could leave greens in for the weekend. Although they will get a little wilty by day 2, it's not going to kill the animal. But again, your bearded dragon, which needs those live crickets hopping around the tank, loading it up for the weekend is typically a risky choice and a poor choice at that. So a little recap over what we just talked about. When shopping for an animal for your classroom, look at maintenance first before you look at the animal. I know you might have your eyes set on something really cool, but if the maintenance doesn't line up with the schedule that you'll be in the classroom, then it's a poor choice for a classroom animal. So maintenance first. Can this animal go the weekend without regular maintenance? If you have any other questions or you want to pick our brain, feel free to come into the store and speak to our staff. You can also reach out to us on every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And of course, you can visit us on our website at www.thetdi.com.